Hi, it's Kristen here at UT Southwestern Medical Center. Thank you for joining us for our Facebook Live chat on Eating Smart. This is our first chat of the new year, and we are excited to have Dr. Joanne Carson, who is a professor of clinical nutrition here at UT Southwestern. Dr. Carson is also a passionate nutrition educator for all ages, including our dietetic and our medical students, and she's currently serving as chair of the American Heart Association's Nutrition Committee. So before we start, just a couple reminders. Don't forget to like and share this chat as we go along. It'll be about 30 minutes, so start getting those questions in. And you want to write the question in the comments section of your Facebook feed. We'll take as many questions as we can get to. You know, the chat, one other thing is it will be available afterwards here on Facebook, and we'll also post it on our YouTube channel. So be on the lookout for that. We also, one more thing, want to thank the UT Southwestern School of Health Professions for helping us host and promote this chat. They are a fabulous partner. So to get going, Dr. Carson, it's wonderful to have you.
Sure, good to be here.
Yeah, I think a lot of people this time of year, you know, they're setting resolutions, whether they want to lose weight, they want to maintain their weight, they want to, you know, eat better. What is a healthy diet or a healthy eating plan? What does it look like?
Well, you know, Michelle Obama's healthy plate is really a pretty good example. So, you know, if you look at your plate and at least half of it's filled with fruits and vegetables that weren't fried or covered in sauces, and then you've got a lean portion of meat, and your starch is maybe a whole grain, and I encourage people to have a low-fat glass of milk sitting next to it. That's, you know, if you eat that way 3 times a day, that's a good plan. But there's all different kinds of ways to skin the cat.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know one of the questions that we had beforehand, somebody was wondering, they said, you know, what should you eat if you have fatty liver? I know that's definitely growing in prevalence nationwide.
Yes,
so what are some food considerations for that type of situation?
Yes, so for someone who has a fatty liver, usually those individuals are overweight or obese, and so losing weight is a really important strategy, and losing weight by controlling the carbohydrate. So the carbohydrate, metabolically, the sugar and simple carbohydrates are probably contribute a little bit more to that fatty liver, and so that's an important thing. So making sure that your carbohydrate intake includes a lot of fiber, and still trying to control the calories. And if you consume alcohol, that would be a good thing to reduce very significantly.
All right, great question. Great, thanks for asking that question. It's a great way to start us off. Another question that came in beforehand is, you know, and this is one that a lot of people ask. They say, okay, so I'm eating right. I've got, you know, a mixture from the food groups, but I really love chocolate. Do I have to give up chocolate?
So I have this a long time ago. I learned these 4 ways to deal with what you would call a problem food. So you can have it less frequently, or you can have it in smaller portions, or you can just give it up and have something else, or you can change the way it's prepared. So like for chocolate, I would say instead of having your typical milk chocolate, maybe having dark chocolate. You know, but again, thinking about, for some people it's like, oh, chocolate's way too tempting to me. If I indulge, I can't control it and I'm going to eat a lot. So for somebody like that, then you probably need to just substitute something else. Like maybe air popcorn is your snack instead of chocolate. But for someone else, oh, just that chocolate flavor, if I could have just a small piece of dark chocolate, that does it for me. Or for somebody else, it's like, I can't go forever without it, but if I can just do it on Saturday afternoon.
Right. Okay. That's good advice there. So we've got a question from Jennifer Cox. So Jennifer says, would you recommend a high-fat, moderate protein, low, no-carb diet? Sounds like there's a whole lot of stuff in there.
So I would say if you want to lose weight, you can do that with almost any distribution of what we call macronutrients, the fat, the carb, and the protein. Okay, but typically I don't recommend a high-fat diet. And even for someone who wants to reduce their carbohydrate, for instance, the person with the fatty liver, if you just kind of contrast an Atkins diet with a South Beach diet, well, the South Beach diet had healthy fat in it, whereas Atkins, you know, I remember people taking just the shell of a bagel and putting cream cheese, filled it with cream cheese. But, that's not a healthy thing to do. And I think one of the things that we really need to be careful about is as we try to do something, whether it's reduce our weight or lower our cholesterol or reduce the fat in our liver, we still want to make sure we're doing things with food that provide for our overall health, that we're not deteriorating our bones, that we're keeping a healthy brain, all those other kinds of things. And that overall healthy plan that includes some healthy fat, some carbohydrate that includes fiber, and some good protein. Probably if you want to lose weight, maybe working a little bit more on increasing the protein and not having so much carb. But doing something very extreme is probably not in the best interest of our bodies.
Okay, we actually have a related question, so good question, Jennifer. This one came from Lori. Lori said, what are some high protein foods for people who don't eat red meat?
Oh, okay, so high protein, well, certainly fish is a great source of protein and a very healthy thing. Certainly poultry is probably the common thing that people eat when they don't eat red meat. But all the vegetable sources of protein, plant sources like quinoa is a great one that has actually good sources of protein, and soy protein products. Seems like there was something else that jumped out at me that I don't know. Nuts give you some protein and some healthy fat. But if I wasn't eating red meat, I think I would, I'd say, I'd encourage fish, and then I would make sure that on that healthy plate you had that either glass of low-fat or skim milk, or a low-fat cheese or low-fat yogurt, some dairy. That gives you some protein also. Oh, I know the other one. I left out eggs.
Oh, so, eggs, yes.
Certainly the protein in egg whites is a great source of protein. It's inexpensive. It's easy to eat and carry and that kind of thing. And we're getting a little bit more liberal about the use of the egg yolk. We used to say don't have more than 2 to 3 a week. Now we'd say, for most people, certainly having an egg a day is reasonable.
That's good, because I have an egg a day. Happy to hear that. Great question, Lori. So we've got another one that came in from Jenny, and this is it deals with vegetables, and she's wondering, how can someone get in their daily servings of fruits and vegetables? It seems very daunting to her.
Well, if you work at it for each of your meals, so you like, I know some people who don't really have fruit or vegetables at breakfast, hardly any at lunch, and then they're trying to get all that in the evening. That doesn't work so well. So thinking about how you can add it in, like if oatmeal's a popular breakfast item here in the cold weather, putting some blueberries with your oatmeal or some bananas. Having them handy as a snack. Over the holidays, I made jicama sticks, that are in the refrigerator, that are handy right there, whether it's carrot sticks, jicama sticks, celery sticks, green pepper sticks,
Something
but having
you just
grab that's there. And then remember that when you're sitting down and eating a hot meal, well, you can have twice as much green beans or spinach or something that's really very low calorie and that kind of thing. So, but one of the New Year's resolutions I thought of that you could make is that every time I go to the grocery store, I'm going to be sure and buy at least one fresh vegetable.
I like that resolution. That sounds good. So that's some good ideas for you there, Jenny. So we've got one, a separate one. So this one is from Carol. So Carol is wondering, how does Metamucil before meals help with weight loss? Does it help?
So, well, it's a fiber.
Okay.
And so if you used it before a meal, then it's kind of filling up your stomach with that fiber, and then you get some liquid in there, and that kind of makes you feel a little bit full. So that is something that you could do. You could also do the same thing when you eat a salad at the beginning of your meal.
Okay. So Metamucil or a salad has the same type of effect.
Right.
Okay. Good question. All right, we've got another one, and they are really rolling in. Thank you.
Yeah.
So we've got one from Jessica. She says, what foods are good to consume before and after a cardio workout for those who may have sodium restrictions? Seems a little...
Okay, so before and after a cardio workout with sodium restrictions.
Yeah, because you want to replenish that, something, obviously.
Yes, I mean, I guess, one of the common things that we talk about in terms of after a workout is replenishing with chocolate milk. And so milk has some sodium. but it wouldn't be a particularly salty thing like crackers would or potato chips or something like that. Let's see.
Seems like a tricky one. It might be.
I'm trying to think of other. I have to admit, sports nutrition's not my area as much, but
So is there a place she could go to look for a resource about that?
Well, I know certainly there's several academies of sports medicine and that kind of thing. The Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics has a website that's eatright.com that has nutrition advice for all kinds of individuals. But in there, you could search for sports nutrition advice.
Okay, it's a really good resource to know. So we've got a couple. We've got more coming in. So this one comes from. So Emilio is wondering. And this, we've kind of touched on this a little bit. What is the best protein to eat if I want to be healthy?
So the best protein. So there are a number of studies that kind of suggest the downside of red meat. So, red meat's associated with colon cancer. So I'm actually doing the opposite of what he asked, right? I'm telling you what not to eat. But so if you're trying to stay away from red meat, I think, eggs and dairy protein. Say the question again.
So what is the best protein to eat if I want to be healthy?
So I would say probably, it might vary with the individual, but a mix of plant and animal sources. So using some of those plant-based proteins like the soy protein, the nuts, the quinoa, that kind of thing. But then also including some maybe poultry and fish.
Okay. Really fabulous question. So we've got another one from Emilio, excuse me. He says, with this one, what is a great diet or eating plan to avoid the most common diseases? Thinking that would be things like heart
disease, diabetes, cancer.
Yeah. Is there a way to...
So I would say, yes, so I would say still that my plate. That's what the government does. It doesn't want us to die of the most common things. It wants us to create rare problems, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, and I would say, like, if you contrast what the Heart Association and the American Cancer Society would say, I mean, they're really very similar. Eat more whole grains, more fruits and vegetables, make your protein a lean protein in a modest portion, include some low-fat dairy. So I think, that's and but really indeed the number one thing you could do is to be in energy balance. So as you select that varied diet, make it not too many calories. That's probably the biggest contributor to chronic disease in the United States is too many calories.
Gotcha. All right, and we've got about 6 more questions that have just come in the past couple seconds, so we're gonna jump around a little bit. So one came in from Amy. It looks like there's some debate going on here. She's wondering, does it really matter if fish is wild or farmed from a nutritional standpoint?
Right, it doesn't. So if it's in really cold water, it probably made more of the healthy omega-3 fatty acids.
Okay.
But the farmed fish now, the way they feed those fish and that type of thing, you don't see a really significant difference. It's much more important to incorporate at least 3 to 4 ounces of fatty fish twice a week than it is to make a distinction between farmed and wild.
There you go. There's the answer. You solved their problem. All right. Now this one, this is a tough one. It's from Johanna. And so thanks for submitting this, Johanna. She says, how do you stop sugar cravings? Is that even possible?
So I think probably the best way to stop sugar cravings is to stay away from it. So I think that
cold turkey, stay away?
And have some other things that you can consume that don't have, especially large amounts of sugar in them. So I think that different people have, genetically different brains that make some people are more likely to have this sugar craving than others. But snacking on something like, say, the jicama sticks that have a little bit of sweetness to them but are giving you some fiber and aren't giving you that, it's almost for some people an addiction kind of thing that, I got that and I got this feeling, and they're not really even able to consciously define that, but it makes them want more.
Okay.
And I have seen that with some individuals that I've worked with, that as long as they can really stay away from it, they're doing pretty well. But then they go to the birthday party or whatever, and it, but the other thing would be to make it as inaccessible as possible.
Okay. So this would be something like instead of having maybe a bowl of candy on the table, they have a bowl of grapes. So you still have a little bit of sweetness, but not that. Okay. Okay. That makes perfect sense. So we've got a question from Eunice, and Eunice is asking, is there a required diet or is there a good diet for people with chronic sinusitis and allergic rhinitis? It's an interesting question. I guess are there things that would keep you...
So there's not, like in the dietetics handbook, there's not we have this is what you do for diabetes, this is what you do for this renal disease. We don't have this is what you do for sinusitis.
Yeah.
But it is an inflammation, so including more omega-3 fatty acids might be a little bit helpful.
Okay.
And then I think there's some people, I don't know that there's any evidence that supports this, but I think there's some people that might say dairy products might worsen that.
Okay.
So those are 2 tips to try. Not great science behind them, but
so
possibilities.
More omega-3 and maybe less dairy.
Right.
See if that works. Okay. I know that's a common problem here in North Texas. So yeah, these are great questions. Keep them coming. Looks like we have about 15 minutes left. So we're going to keep going. We've got one here from Amanda. She says, do you have any suggestions or tips for meal prep for busy week schedules? And what are some healthy foods that are great for this?
Okay, so trying to take time to plan ahead is a really good thing to do.
Yeah.
So some people like to cook, chili, now that it's wintertime, chili, soups, casseroles, whatever, and then put them in the freezer and then just pull them out. But certainly in today's world, you can get them all pre-made and frozen, or go to the grocery store. A lot of it really has to do with how much money you have to spend on it. So, I know individuals who use the groups like Blue Apron and Home Chef and that kind of thing. That actually takes some time, but it works for some people. But I think, I've had a busy life as a practicing dietitian on the faculty here for decades, and had 2 kids, and actually at one point, was working on a PhD and here at the same time and that kind of thing. So I would say I used some pre-prepared frozen items that were listed as lean and that type of thing. And then when I had more time, I bought things on the weekend, and whether it's putting the things together, like now we deconstruct salads, so we have all the parts of the salad, so there's the lettuce ready to go, and the little baby tomatoes that don't have to be cut up and that kind of thing, and the cucumbers maybe are already sliced and it's all there in the refrigerator and you just have to mix it together. So planning ahead and thinking about things that you can do, and then depending on your finances, you can pay for somebody else to have done all that for you at the grocery store or the delivery service, or you can figure out. Another thing is getting other people to help you. What can your 12-year-old do to make this? That was one of the things I did when I was growing up, before we had microwaves. Can you imagine that?
No.
That my mother prepared the food, had it in the refrigerator, and my job as a 12-year-old was to get home from school and turn on the oven, the stove, whatever, and warm it up. So when she and my dad arrived home at 5 p.m., we would eat dinner.
Wow, that's good for her. That sounds like a great training. So with that in mind, if you're going to go the route, if you're going to use some pre-prepared frozen meals or something, what should people look for on the frozen boxes? Are there certain ingredients they should try to avoid, or they just go pick something?
So one of the things is to look at the calories, and probably the amount of fat and the amount of sodium, and, look at that, if you kind of use that daily value as a guide and you don't want to exceed 100%, well, gee, if I'm going to get 30% of the daily value, but it's my whole meal, well, that's maybe a third of what I'm eating today. Or on the other hand, if this is a snack and I'm getting 30% of it, that's kind of a lot. Then the other thing to keep in mind with frozen things is they tend to not give you that many vegetables. You know, so that half a plate with fruits and vegetables, so think about maybe I can have this frozen entree, but I can have a salad with it.
Okay.
Or even, you know, there's frozen rolls now that are whole wheat.
Yes.
You know, you just
They're frozen vegetables.
And yeah, there's certainly frozen vegetables, but even a whole grain roll that, you know, you just stick in the toaster oven and you've heated up one for you, and that's adding some whole grain, not white flour kind of thing.
It's really good options there. So we're going to go to, we've got a couple questions that are going. Lots of people have questions about meat today. So this one, Jenny, she says, you know, I missed the part about protein options that aren't red meat. She says, I'm a vegetarian and I find all of the diets and eating plans out there don't factor a non-meat diet. So what are there options that she should look at, places?
So sure. So I have some friends who are vegetarian that eat at my home. So
Yeah.
So one of the things I sometimes use are the soy protein, and even like the pea protein is now a popular thing. But it's amazing to me the frozen ground beef kind of thing that you can find in the freezer section, that, you know, whether you're making spaghetti sauce or chili or tacos or whatever, you know, that's an option. Other things, well, I think then I really do think that nuts give us a nice form of fat as well as protein, you know, so you know, having a salad and adding in some nuts. Then some people who are vegetarian are not including dairy in there, and some people are. But certainly using low fat and skim. If you're a vegetarian and you're including dairy in your diet, having that glass of skim milk with a meal is a really, you get 8 grams of protein with a glass of milk, and that's as much as an ounce of meat.
Wow, that's
or
good
an
to
egg.
know. All right, well, similar question from Susanna. She's wondering, she says, what's an adequate amount of protein a person should eat? And is there a ratio to figure out how much she should eat?
Okay, so there are numbers. So interesting, if you look at the label, typically there's not a daily value for protein. It has to do with what the law requires and doesn't require. But anyway, technically for a male, the recommended dietary allowance of protein is 56 grams a day, and for women it's 46 grams a day.
Does that depend on your height
number,
or your weight, or is it just
so that's
gender?
based on the average size of a man or woman, but that's 0.8 grams per kilogram. So, you know, you take your weight, divide it by 2.2 to come up with how many kilograms from pounds, multiply it times 0.8, and that's how much protein is recommended for the average individual. When you're pregnant, you need 25 extra grams. So that's a little harder for a young, small female to get. If you're an athlete, then more like probably 1 to 1.2. And actually, if you're an older adult, more like 1 to 1.2 grams of protein is probably a good thing to do.
And is that because typically when you're an older adult, you may be eating less, and you need a little bit more of that to compensate, or?
Well, I think that you're not as efficient at maintaining your muscles, your lean mass.
Very good. So really great question. We've got one here from Carol. So Carol says, breakfast seems to be the biggest problem in my weight loss journey. I usually end up eating the same boring breakfast. What are some easy breakfast take-along ideas?
Well, and one of the things I notice people doing is sometimes bringing their breakfast to work with them and eating it after they get to here. So if you're doing that, I like yogurt with granola type stuff in it. You know, a healthy granola, some nuts in there. You can put some fruit in there, you know, that you've added the fruit yourself. So but now that's not eat in the car as you're going. And I think I would say eat in the car as you're going is not the best thing for weight control and that kind of thing. A cheese stick and a piece of fruit, there's another option.
What about a peanut butter sandwich?
Yeah,
whole wheat bread, maybe?
Sure. You know, there's nothing that says what we think of as breakfast foods have to be what we eat for breakfast. So I might think of a half of a peanut butter sandwich, you know, as just portion size for breakfast, and then maybe also a piece of fruit. And that kind of thing.
Yeah, really good question, Carol. Thanks for asking it. I know we're really racking Dr. Carson's brain here. We've got a couple more, and we're running out of time, but we're going to take this one from Monica. She says, I'd like to know about omega-3. Which do you recommend? Or do you recommend omega-3s?
So I'm guessing she's talking about a supplement.
I'm guessing too.
So I would say, first of all, I would recommend most that people try to get their omega-3 from eating fatty fish several times a week.
Okay.
But if you're not going to eat fish and you want to take an omega-3 supplement, then I would look for a supplement that has both DHA and EPA in it. About 500 milligrams of DHA and EPA per day is going to give you plenty of omega-3.
Okay.
Yeah, there's probably a lot of intricacies into selecting an omega-3 supplement, but in reality, I don't think there's, I think if you just look for that amount, that's pretty good.
Okay, that works fine. So Sarah, and we talked about eggs as a really good source of protein, and she's wondering if you recommend organic free range or cage free. Apparently they eat lots of eggs and want to know the healthiest options. Does that play a role? Can you just go to the store and buy eggs, or do you need to look for one of these?
I think you can just go to the store and buy eggs.
All right, there you go. So there you go, Sarah. So just go buy eggs. Don't worry about which type you're buying. We've got one more here from Emilio. This is something that hasn't come up during our chat. He says, how many coffee cups do you recommend a day?
So it turns out that people have, there's a genetic difference. That means that some people metabolize the caffeine differently. And so if you happen to not metabolize it well, then you might get more jittery when you consume a fair amount of coffee.
Right.
And but anyway, I think the difference is if you stay at no more than 3 to 4 cups of coffee per day, you're going to be fine. But if you happen to have that genetic difference and you're consuming 8 cups of coffee a day, it may actually increase the chances of dying of heart disease.
Wow. And is that the caffeine part of it? So would it be the same for somebody with tea or somebody that drinks energy drinks?
Yes. So it is related to caffeine, and I think energy drinks again might be a place that people are getting. But if you look at the American intake of caffeine, the people who consume the most are the consistently over a lifetime kind of thing are the people who are significant coffee drinkers.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So we've got time for one more question. We're going to take this from Joaquin. It's something that we talked about a little bit earlier, but I think it's something worth going back to. He's wondering for foods to eat or avoid if you have fatty liver disease.
Okay. So I would say if you have fatty liver disease, the number one thing I would avoid is alcohol. And then I would try to avoid as much sugar as possible. And on the plus side, I would try to incorporate the carbohydrate choices that include more fiber, like having vegetables, having pinto beans instead of having white pasta.
Okay, really good advice. So as we close out, I have one final question. You know, if somebody is deciding what their resolutions are going to be for this year, what their goals are, I mean, and they want to lose weight or they want to maintain weight, how should exercise factor into that, and just daily activity?
So exercise is an important part of controlling our weight. I would say if you're working on losing weight, it's good to try to focus on the diet part, but not give up on exercise. But then when you reach your goal weight, trying to make sure you're getting regular physical activity, exercising more than is the recommended amount for just good health is important for. So like exercising maybe 30 to 60 minutes every day is important to help keep off weight that you've already lost.
Okay. Well, that is all the time we have today. I want to thank Dr. Carson for joining us, and thank you to our audience for all of the wonderful questions. Don't forget the chat will be available here on our Facebook page indefinitely, and we'll also post it on our UTSW Med YouTube account this afternoon. So please go ahead and share it with your friends and loved ones, and we've had lots of great information. In the meantime, we will see you next time. Thank you.